Okay, so about the motors, there are two types of motors. Sorry, I don't have the second type loose, so I will need to show it on my drone. This is the brushless motor, and let me take the most common one. And this is the brushed motors. So the brushed motor works like this. There are two carbon or from any other material brushes. Most in the cheaper ones is just a piece of metal, and they provide the voltage. There is a spinning part with the magnets. I think there are magnets outside, and there is a inside is a part that have a coils. Sorry, I will not show it inside. I don't have any one broken, and you may just find any movies, anything like this, how the motor is made, and it's work like this. When you connect this to the to voltage, these brushes pass through the voltage and turn on one of the electromagnetic magnets. They just how to say it, magnetize, yes, but they just getting closer to the magnet. Sorry, I don't know how to say it. They just move it to the next magnet. The brushes send the signal to another magnet, the next magnet, that's also getting closer to this magnet, and that's how it's moving. When the motor get a power, is just getting one magnet is pulling. Oh yes, that's the word. It's pulling to another one, and in that position second one is pulling to next one. So mostly, if I remember, there are two magnets on both sides, and three, if I remember, electromagnetic with a coil, and this brush is connected to a round barrel with three pins, and just send the voltage, or sorry, maybe 4 pins, and connect the voltage. Of course, there are more advanced types with more poles, if I remember, some more resolution, but that's the basic. So always brushed motor will have only 2 pins. Here is the brushless motor. You may not see it good because it's protected, but there are 3 wires. So how this works is there are no brushes like in here. Brushless motor, as the name say, just have only the 3 magnets, electromagnetic magnets like in here, but there is a regulator that sends the impulse. So here, while it's spinning, the voltage is sent to each coil on the magnets, and just move it. So if you rotate it, it will start rotate in the second in the reverse direction. Here the regulators send impulse, so this motor take a continuous power, so it's not effective because it's constantly taking the power. In the brushless motor, the regulators send impulses. Between each impulse, the motor doesn't get any voltage, but the impulses are so short that the motor will not stop. So mostly these motors are much more stronger than this one, because it's I think the magnets are stronger, take less power than this one, mostly have more speed, but needs a regulator that control it, and some of the regulators, like on the cars, can be programmed, like the braking, where the regulator send voltage on 2 cables and just stop the motor and hold it. This motor cannot have a brake, but some brushed regulators just send a constant impulse that try to hold the motor in one position. So of course this one is much better, but needs a special regulator for it, and depending on the regulator you have much more options or much more some functions, but of course this one is much cheaper, and on most toys you can find this one. And if you switch from the brushed to brushless, mostly you need to switch the gears, because this motor have much more speed, much more current, and on the same setup will not work as so good. Okay, so that's about the brushed and the brushless. I have the most common free gears, maybe free motors, maybe not this one, but this is the most common motor you will find in most of the toys. It's the 150 motor, and that's the most common on the toys. Have a bunch of motors like this because I modify some cars, and I have much more like this one. This one is 180 motor. It's the same motor as this one, but this one is longer because it's longer, have stronger magnets, and have much more power. Of course, depending on the voltage they work on the speed, motors will not be the same. So let's say like this motor designed for 24 volts will have less speed on 20 volts than the same one that is designed for 20 volts. I know it's complicated when I say, but let's say like these two motors have like this one is designed for the 20 volts, and this one is designed for 24 volts. Both have, let's say, 300 rotates per minute, but if I connect this one to 20 volts, it will have the half of the speed. So this one will have a 150 rotates per minute, and this one will still have that 300. So that's most simple way that you can determine on how fast it will work. The second one that I use is a N20 motor. It's a small, of course brushed, because there are 2 pins motor that it's geared. So this motor is weak, have a very fast speed, and it's reduced by the gearbox in here, and the output is much have less speed but much more power, because this motor is spinning so fast and the output is so slow that it's very hard to stop it. Of course, it's not impossible to stop it. It's still quite weak, but these motors are used in the winches when you hook the cable on something and you pull the RC car to it. So it's quite good motors. I have it in my WPL, and I think also in B24 from WPL. No, sorry, the B1 have a bigger motor. It's one N30 if I remember, or not. It's much bigger, have much more current, but it's a great motors, but only for, if you want it for WPL, only for 2x2 cars, because if you have a 4x4 cars, because if you have 6 wheels, one motor will be connected to 2 axles, of course 4 wheels, and that one will work much slower. So it's not good for 6 wheelers, but 4 wheels, yes. I have it on a Caterpillar, and also that powered both trucks, and they work really well. Okay, so that's mostly about the motors. There is also a more talk about how many thieves there are. So if you have less thieves on the motor, that will mean the motor needs to make much more turns, but it will have more power. And if you have more thieves, the bigger pinion gear on the motor, that means it will rotate the gear faster, but will have less torque. So the small gear on the motor is always much more better than the bigger one. Only if you have if you want to have much more speed, then you just put it in the bigger motor. Of course, there are gearboxes, some gears torque, but I will not cover. It's just the most basic information I can tell you. Okay, so that's all. Now we will move, I think, to the ESC. Oh, I forgot, so I will just cover another thing, the battery indicators. So that's sorry, I hit the camera. Here are some battery indicators. So let me connect this one and I will show you. To prevent from discharge of the battery, you can always have a Lipo, it's called the battery indicator or alarm. This one showing that two batteries are green, so it's still charged. The second one have a LCD display. Oh, disconnected. It's like this. Oh no, I don't remember. Oh, it's like this. This one have a wait, it's a black one to black one. This one have a display. It's displaying full voltage, and this one is discharge, and individual cells. So this one is mostly discharge. I need to charge this one, and the second one I'm again the same thing. I know my dog will not like it because this one is loud. It's hard. It's having a buzzer. Played the sound, very loud sound, to let you know that it's discharged. My dog doesn't. It's afraid, but I will connect and show it. Be aware, it's a loud sound. Battery is not still discharged fully, so it's not beeping now, but it will beep very loud when the battery will discharge mode. Okay, so this is about the alarms. Sorry, I did forget about that. Maybe I will change the just move this movie to the front. Okay, and next will be the ESC. So here is the most popular red ESC. ESC, if I understand, is a electric speed controller. What this does is getting the signal from the radio and translating that to a to controlling the voltage. In this moment, all the impulses on the brushless one to control the speed and the direction of the motor. So here is the most popular one, is a 20 amps or 30 amps. That means it can survive. If I'm not sure, this one can survive up to 10 amps continuous power, and 20 amps in the short, like about 2 to 5 seconds of current. So many people ask also what this is. This is the brake switch. The brake switch turn on something like this. Let me get the radio, I will show. So when you go forward, and you push it, sorry, it's hard to. When you go forward, you push it back. And if this one is set to brake, the car will first brake. When you push it to center, you need to hold for half of second, if I remember, in the center, and put it back. It will go backward. So if the brake is off, when you go forward and you hit the reverse, it will automatically go reverse, no braking. So this is what the brake switch does. Not always the red ones have it, not all, but mostly it is. I doesn't really like the brake, but I have in most of my cars turned it on. Of course, here is a power switch that turn on the ESC. Most of toys have it built in, so you can always cut the cable and just solder. It's not a positive negative, it's just connecting two wires together, so it's not a very big philosophic if you want to use the built-in plug. Many people have problems what plug goes where. So the most simple thing, let me see where did I put the battery, is just to see what plug have battery. Battery will always have a plug, so socket is designed for the battery, and the second one is designed for the motor. Motors doesn't always have any plug, so we can always just buy any plug. Like I use in most of my cars a JST, because that one is the most popular in that small scale. I will put, of course, links to most popular parts that you may want to buy, and I have a bunch of it. If I need to, I just solder a new cable to the motor, and that's all. So always check, type in a JST battery and just see what plug is on the battery, and you will know. Of course, there are always color marked what is what, so black is negative, red is positive. You are not able to connect it wrong, because there is a let's say like pin, it's shaped correctly, so it's a groove, or maybe that's better, groove inside, and you're not able to connect it wrong anyway. All the plugs are always protected from reverse connection. Only if you solder the cables wrong, it may destroy the battery or the electronic, of course. On the motor, if you rotate any cable, even on the brushless, the motor will just spin to the other direction. On the brushed motors, you just switch the two cables. On the brushless, you just switch any of the two cables. It doesn't matter any of the three cables, any two of them, but always switch the two cables and the motor will just turn in the other direction. So this is the most popular one. They work really well. Of course, this one have a reverse. There is a diode that tells you when it's on and it's when it's working. So this is the most popular one. So now I will maybe we'll switch to the remote now. Yes, I think we will switch to the remote. Here is a radio. Give me a moment, I will put the camera a little more up.